We are here at daytradingradio.com with Briguy's Tools of the Trade episode 2. I hope everyone's doing okay out there. And what we're going to focus on tonight in regards to tools are some of the websites that folks like to use to either educate themselves as to where we are in the market, educate themselves as to ways to trade, figuring out the different charts setups that there are. There's also some educational websites that we'll take a look at, and hopefully some sites that are useful. I did get some nice feedback from some of the members, so I appreciate that. Let me know some of the sites that they're using. And as I mentioned in the announcement that you all saw, I am also going to be opening this up to calls. So if you have Skype and you'd like to get a question into the show, or if you want to just call in when we get to a website that you particularly find helpful and you'd like to explain why, or just show us the little button that's in the upper right hand corner that most people don't notice is there, and that it opens up free candy for all. I don't know. Whatever it is. I just want to make this show entertaining if at all possible, besides educational. When it comes to questions, guys, I'll ask you to send me a private message in the chat room, and that way I can keep track of whose questions I haven't answered yet. And you can ask them in the room, and I'll do my best to get to them there as well. But if you send me the private message, then it'll definitely draw my attention, since I have the other machine muted at this time. Okay, so we have a question here that's coming in asking how to listen to daytradingradio.com on the iPhone. Well, the way that is done is, and I believe I'm not going out on a limb to say this, I believe there's an app for that. There was an app being prepared, and I think it was live. I don't have an iPhone, so I can't confirm 100%. But Brenton, if you want to take a look in the iTunes store, if that's what they call it over there at Apple, then do that, because they were working on it, and I'm pretty sure they put it into effect, and you can find the app in there. If not, you can, at least on a browser, and I do this on my Droid phone, is on a browser you can bring up daytradingradio.com and find it there. I found that on a 3G system, my phone, it's a little older, so it streams pretty well, but you lose the connection from time to time if you're driving, let's say, and it loses connection to one tower and tries to connect to the other tower, you'll just lose the audio for a heartbeat. If you have 4G, it seems to work really, really well. So RPM's done a few shows on that and demonstrated it quite a bit, and you guys can check that out in the forum. So let's look at some of the websites that are out there. Now, before we start, I wanted to also mention, when it comes to tools of the trade, and really in your journey as a trader, and your business as a trader, however way you view it as being a trader, is that your greatest tool is going to be you. You can only control your actions. You control which things you're looking at. You control how much time you spend in educating yourself, how much time you spend investing in your research. Many people, when they on the outside and they think about a trader, and many of you have seen this, they think of a trader as somebody in a two-piece suit, three-piece suit, pinstriped, and they're driving around in a $100,000 car, and they're making $1 million off of someone else's backs in 5 minutes of work. Now, that's not to say you can't make $1 million in 5 minutes, but more often than not, the time and effort that leads to getting to that 5 minutes is very large. So, just like with most things, there's no get-rich-quick scheme with trading. It's a job, it's a business, and if you're going to be a trader, you have to look at it like that. You have to put in the time. If you already have all the education, and some of you traders out there do this for a living, Johnny obviously does it for a living, Don't think for a minute that Johnny just puts in the time that you hear him live on the air and that's the end of it. And he doesn't have to do any more work. And he's got a staff of 1,000 people that make everything happen behind the scenes. No, Johnny's working hard. You'll see when you get that email from him on a Saturday or sometimes on a Sunday, that's because he's putting in the time to get that video together. And think about it. When you're watching that video and it's 30 minutes long, 60 minutes long, whatever it is, that's how long it took him to just talk about the stocks that he's already found. So you could just backtrace that to the amount of time he's invested into the research, and it's quite a bit. So we're going to take a look at some websites that I've come across over the years, some that you guys have submitted, some I've seen you guys reference in the rooms before. I'm not presenting any of these as being better than another. These are just, my goal here is to put this information out there for you and make it beneficial to you guys. If you haven't heard of some of these, maybe it'll help. If you found that some of these are completely worthless, let us know, because we certainly don't want to waste any time. Now, I've got a link in the forum here. If you guys go into our forum, and I don't have access to making the video a clickable thing, so I'm going to be sporting 2 chat rooms tonight just for the sake of allowing me to communicate with you guys and share out some of these links. So the first tool I would say, guys, to keep in mind if you're a premium member here at daytradingradio.com, a resource that you want to make use of, and that's our forums. You want to make use of our forums. So when you do that, then you're going to benefit immensely. Now the forum, I'm going to click out of the subforum that I was just in, which is just for my show. And here's the larger forum. And I'll just shrink this down to fit on a page. And you guys can see that there's quite a bit of information contained in this forum. You have about a dozen or so subforums that are referenced in here. And when I let's put this back to 0. This forum is going to be something that is useful to you guys the more you use it. We have people that post questions in there, and sometimes they're answered by others besides the ones who posted the original question, and that's fine. We encourage you guys to make use of it and to communicate with one another. It has private messaging, so you can send messages to one another. You can send messages to Johnny, to Paul, to myself. If you become friends with other members using the forum, then you can ask questions directly. But the better way to do it would be to post questions to the forum itself. You'll also find in here reference to the websites like we talked about. Here's a whole link here, favorite websites. That's about 4 or 5 from the top. And here some have already been populated of various websites. And we'll take a look at some of these in just a bit. I think some of these were also referenced in the survey that I asked you guys about earlier. If you scroll down to the middle section of the forums, you're going to see a part about computers, computer tech zone. So sometimes you have questions about types of hardware you should have or would be good to have. Common questions are about monitors, what kind of video cards to have, and these are some questions that have been addressed in the past during other trade shows, other videos. RPM's done plenty of tech talk shows, and a lot of these comments are in here. Near the bottom is our listing for the after-hour shows, so here's where you'll see plenty of interviews from the past. These are going to be YouTube videos that you can just click on and hit play, read some of the comments, and feel free to interact with the video. Post some comments here in the forum if there's a question you have about the video. And if you post in the forum, the good thing is that it'll get answered. So if someone else has a similar question, they'll see the answer as well. So it's a good resource for everyone to have. You have the after-hour shows again. You've got the Tech Talk Live with RPM, and he's done a whole bunch. This is just a few that he's posted here, and if you go out to RPM's YouTube pages, you'll find a complete resource of information for all kinds of tech issues. Not to mention the fact that RPM makes himself so available to us in the room. You see him all during the day. He's there at night. He's there when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. So feel free to post any questions to RPM. He's a good guy. So for tonight, I have the Briguy's Tools of the Trade forum that I gave you the link to. And in here is the link to the survey that I posted earlier today. It was in the announcement. If you guys during the show want to fill out that survey, I will see it updated live. If there's a particular website you'd like to cover or talk about, then we can certainly do that. So what are some other tools that we can use? Well, another obvious tool for us as members of Day Trading Radio is the HPS website. Now, how do you get to the HPS website? There's a link once you log into the main page at daytradingradio.com. Right underneath the streaming video, you can see it now, is the green button for HPS. And you can also just simply save the bookmark for a future reference, and that bookmark is hps.daytradingradio.com. I'm trying to grab it so I can zoom in on it. And you just save that as a bookmark or a favorite in your browser, and you can get back to it anytime. You'll have to log in because it is a membership-only service, but once you're logged in, you'll be able to view it. So how do you use the HPS? Well, I'm not going to get into a whole show just about the HPS. I'll just give you an example here. Obviously, you've got the list of stocks that Johnny's highlighted for the week, and sometimes these lead into the week before as well. There are stocks that just happen to be setting up and maybe are still setting up in a particular range. In this example here, we're going to take a look at Dunkin' Donuts. So how would you make use of this? Well, you've got the little green plus sign in the expand column. So you just click on that, and that brings up a little mini view of information. You'll notice that the stocks that were above Dunkin' have been dimmed out, and the stocks below it have been dimmed out. So it's just highlighting the information on Dunkin'. You have the last price, you've got the entry price range, the target, and the stop entry, or I should say the stop. These symbols here are listed in the legend at the bottom. So the green L is that it's a long setup for Dunkin', and then you've got your symbols, your signals that have triggered. Now, if you notice, these others are saying watching. Some only have the green circle, which means the entry has been hit, and then yellow means that the target has been hit. So not only did Dunkin' hit the entry range of 28.5 cents to 28.7, but it also went right into the target range, which was the point to start taking profits. So when you're looking at it here, you've got a chart, you've got some info listed on the right, you've got a few links here at the top, and what you can actually do is click right on the chart, and that'll bring up a full screen view of the chart that you guys can take a look at. In the view that I'm in right now, on the screen resolution, it's kind of trimming it, so I have to move this over to the right a little. Maybe on your screen it'll fill the whole window. And there's actually an option here to view it full screen. So let's do that. And there, it made it fit a little bit better. So here's the stock with the notes on it that Johnny put on there from when he first mentioned Dunkin' Donuts. And you'll see listed there again, you've got the buy trigger, you've got the stop underneath, and the profit zone. And notice how those areas are highlighted here on the chart. Now, the chart stopped at August 24th, which was the weekend. and it's not showing Monday's activity. So how do you do that? Well, that's what this big gray play button is for. You see how it says load new bars? So you click on that, and what it'll do is load up the remaining data for that chart. And in this particular case, you'll see how this stock played out just the way that, well, I want to say that Johnny gave direction in both directions, didn't he? Because he gave a stop. But in this case, it did actually move into the buy area and make its continuation, which is what Johnny was expecting it to do. You see how it stayed within the channels. You've got the dashed red lines for the channels. It's staying above these moving averages, and here it's moved right into the profit zone. So there were those in the room. If you were in the room today as a premium member, you would have seen how many traders, I saw myself, took the trade, took some profits in the position, some still holding on to it, and others maybe have closed out their trade. But whatever the decision that's made, this is a tool to be used to help you in your trading. It's not to say that you have to get into this particular trade. If you didn't get into the trade, you shouldn't beat yourself up over it. There's going to be another trade tomorrow. So don't feel like you have to take every single trade as they come along. And especially if you're starting out. You're going to want to do this as maybe a paper trade option. Write down how many shares you think you would have bought if you did, and don't use a trading account and a paper account and start trading 10,000 shares, because you'll then get returns that are unrealistic and you won't really get to see the effects of your practice. So those are just some of the suggestions there. Okay. Now, when you're in these charts, I just want to let you know. Now, to get out of it, you could just click outside of the chart itself, and I have to go farther enough away, it looked like. There's also an X here in the lower right corner to close that out. But another feature and another tool is if you use this option here at the top right, to the right of full screen, it says make it live. So if you use that option, what will happen is it'll load up the website that the chart is coming from, which is tradingview.com. And this is a service that offers some free charting and also a subscription service if you want to be able to save your charts and share them out with others for future reference. So here's the same chart. You'll see kind of zoomed in, and if I change the zoom area here on the right, I can pan this down and you can see where the notes are. Okay? Most charting software, to let you know, when you move your mouse into one of the axes, such as the price in the horizontal, or I should say the vertical axis here, or the time frame in the lower axis here, if you hold down the left mouse button and then move your mouse up and down or move it left and right, then what that'll do is stretch or condense the time frame. So sometimes that's useful when you want to move the window around. Now, when I first got into here, it was not in a panning mode, so when I clicked on it, it wasn't letting me move it around. But once I changed the view here from the automatic view to a manual view, which is the ranges, now when I move my hand out and I hold down the left mouse, I can start to move the graph around. And that way you can move it wherever way you want. If you want to scroll back in time, I'm left click, hold, drag, let go of the mouse. Left click, hold, drag, let go of the mouse. So those are just different ways. And I'm doing the same thing going in the other direction. And of course, you've got the scroll bars at the bottom that will let you do pretty much the same thing. So it's just another way of doing whatever it is you want to do. Alright, so I'm going to come back here to the HPS site and show you that that's how you can make use of that information. Now, a link that's here in the HPS page is to Yahoo Finance, for example. So let's take a look at that. And Yahoo Finance is actually another tool, another resource that we can make use of. So let's just take the homepage portion of this link. And I want to say hi to all the members that are out there, those that are trickling in. I appreciate you guys coming along and giving us support. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have any interest in highlighting a particular website that you'd like to highlight, you can either chat me up in the room about it, send me a private message, or you can also give me a call on Skype. If you don't already have my Skype ID, I'll give it to you in the room, and you guys can reach out to me via Skype, and we can answer your questions or listen to your expertise live during the show. So here's Yahoo Finance, and here we're looking at Dunkin' Brands, and the Yahoo Finance information here is very thorough. So again, you have a lot of this information within your own broker's platform. This is just another tool to use. A lot of this data is useful when you're trading in certain ways, such as the EPS, the beta. There's information here about its next earnings date. And what other people like to use here on the sides are some of these links that are over here. And I'm trying to give myself a little memory lesson here on which link I have in particular that I would like to show you. Let's take a look at major holders. So here's Dunkin' Donuts, and here's some information about major holders. You can see a percentage that are owned by mutual funds and institutions, and how much held by just regular individuals, how much are held by insiders in that particular stock. So sometimes, and it depends on what's going on with the stock, sometimes this information is something you want to take into account when doing your trading. I think back to earlier today when we had the questions about BBY. In fact, why don't we look up BBY here? You can see that I just looked for the box on the screen where it said get quotes. Plug that in, and here's our chart on Best Buy. And I'm going to click on major holders. So here's the list of major holders, and you'll see a list of reference to those that have sold, or I should say that owns major amounts of shares. So here you have Richard Scholl's 1.7 million shares. Here you have a list of top institutional holders, top mutual fund holders. And earlier today we were talking about someone who sold a couple of million shares, and it was announced. And we actually have these other links over here, insider transactions. So if we bring that up, here is where you'll get information. And here it is, July 22, Richard Scholl's, an indirect sale of $18.30 a share, over 2 million shares. And then an acquisition, indirect acquisition of 8.5 million shares at $0 per share, some kind of a swap going on there. But now, as traders, as you guys know, as traders, as day traders, or even if you're swing traders, this information, when it is available in this format, is already too old to act on. These transactions took place in the middle of July. We're at the end of August. So what you're going to see on a day when it comes to a chart for Best Buy, for example, is that news gets announced and there is a panic reaction to the news. Those panic reactions are from the inexperienced, the ones that are just listening to today's news and making their trades based upon it in this particular case. In reality, the news already occurred. So whatever happened with the price action, that's already into the stock. So after that panic sell-off that occurred, that would have been an opportunity to buy into the stock. And that's actually, I heard Johnny mention that. Now I'm kind of going into this blindly. I want to see if I got that right. And I believe that this was the time when that announcement was made, right around 2:30. I don't know if you guys in the room can confirm that from earlier in the day, but you'll see what happened. There's this panic sell-off of the news, and eventually the stock reaches a level where reality sets in and it starts to pick up and get right back to the range where it was. This actually looks like a little bit of an anomaly here because I'm looking at the volume as being a little empty in that spot, which is a little awkward. I wonder if we can take a look at a chart. If I were to bring up let's try to bring up my other software here and see if this shows up on the screen for you guys. I'll bring up Best Buy. Just looking at a 3-minute chart for the day, and there's the volume is actually continuous in that region. So I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that this is the area where that news came out, and I can zoom into the area in question and you can see how the reaction to the news was such that you had a tremendous amount of volume right in this area. And I'm looking at a 3-minute chart here. We can change this to a 5-minute and you'll get the same basic effect. There's your big drop off for those 5 minutes, and it reaches a low 1755 or so, and then the buyers come back in, those that know better, and they move the stock right back into the range where it was. So this is Best Buy, one stock out of many that has news like this, reacts to news like this. It happens many, many times during the day, during the week, and the experienced trader is not going to fall into the trap of closing out a position that they're in to fit into the panic, but instead look for an opportunity to take advantage of this change. All right, I'm going to just expand the windows back, and I think I'm getting some comments from someone in the room that lends itself to what I was trying to find earlier. And the point is made that we can go to key statistics and look at the short percent of float and see how many short interest there is in that company, and that is what I was looking for. So that's under key statistics. Here it is under company. We're back on the, I'll tell you what, let's go back to the Duncan page. So we're looking at key statistics, and then we're looking at the short percentage of float, which I believe is over here on the right side, and you can see short percentage of float as of August 15th, 12.5%, and the shares short 7.75 million shares. So there's some information. Now, how do they get that kind of information? Well, remember, when you short a stock, your broker is actually borrowing that stock from someone else who owns it, and they're loaning it to you for a time. And the idea is that at another time in the future, you plan to buy that stock back at whatever price, and then you're delivering it back to the broker, and the broker is then putting it back into the availability of the other person that owns it. That's why you have some stocks that you can't short, because either your broker isn't registered to borrow those shares, or you might have a situation where there's just a stock that it's very difficult to find shares that people are willing to loan out. So in this case, you're talking about Dunkin' Donuts. There's plenty of volume, plenty of liquidity, and I don't have the outstanding shares on this top of the chart. Here's your average volume. Here's shares outstanding, 120.5 million, so 120 billion shares outstanding, of which you've got 12% in the short float. So in some trade setups, you make use of that information to decide whether a stock is moved up too high in an area that maybe all those shorts, if there's enough of them, that they'll start to close out their positions, or maybe they just can't afford to be short any longer and have to close out those positions. And again, this all comes in with your research. It's just another tool of the trade, as it were, that you can make use of. Do we have any other comments about the Yahoo Finance website that anyone would like to mention? Okay. So let's take a look at another tool from Yahoo that I actually like to make use of, and that is a particular news link. Now, I'll go ahead and bring this up on the screen, and then I will post it in the chat room for you guys. And this is it's part of the Yahoo Finance section, but it's the AP, which is the Associated Press, archives. Now, what I like about this is its simplicity, because you can go to other news pages on Yahoo and get the latest news, but then there's also a lot of graphics, and there's a lot of scrolling images, and there's advertisement and several things that are on the screen. This is a very simple presentation of the news, and especially if you bookmark this on your phone or your tablet, it's a nice simple presentation of the news, and it gets updated live. So here you have this terrible news that's brought out here: sanctions block Iran gamers from World of Warcraft. So not sure exactly which stock that's going to impact immediately, but you can click into it, of course, and get the full article. And when there is a stock that's in particular being referenced in the article, they do tend to highlight in the beginning. I don't see one here. So let's go back and let's take a look at something like WellPoint CEO Briguy quits amid sagging results. Alright, so here when I click into the article, because it's about WellPoint, which is WLP, I then get a chart on the screen of WellPoint with its price for the day and its change for the day. Now, one thing you have to watch when you look at some of these news items is that you don't want to get into a news item that occurred or that you're reading now, but it's actually a repeat of something from an hour ago. Maybe they've updated the article for one reason or another. So it's good to keep track of these articles, and certainly don't make a decision on either buying or selling WellPoint strictly off of this one piece of information. You want to get the complete picture. But this is a tool, this AP archive section is a tool for you to be able to see what all those articles are. Sometimes when I'm out walking the dog, I'll just be scrolling through. Maybe I'm looking at a couple of stocks. Maybe I'm looking at gold. I'm looking at eBay or Amazon. And I'll see some articles that come up related to the positions I have or the stocks that I'm considering for an entry. So those are the articles that I'll focus on and read in more depth. And you can bookmark them and get back to them when you get back to your office and look at them in more depth on your desktop or laptop computer. Or if you're on your tablet, you can pretty much look up so much on the tablet as well. So this is just an idea of how to use this tool. It's the Yahoo Finance AP archive. And when you scroll to the bottom, it goes back in time. So there's about 30 articles here on the page, and then you've got a link to older headlines, and you can bring up the earlier articles. And if you're looking for articles about a particular stock's announcement, earnings announcement, then you can scroll back until you get to the 4 o'clock hour, like here we are now, and take a look at the news that came out after the market closed. Here's 4:05. Oil ends above 96 a barrel. You probably don't need to read much more than that. It's just a piece of information to stick in your head. Dunkin' Donuts to add 29 stores in Texas. And Johnny's been banging the table on Dunkin' Donuts. He keeps seeing them being built all over New York. So now you're reading an article that says they're adding more stores in Texas. Doesn't that add to your confidence if you still have Dunkin' Donuts going in overnight? That perhaps it's good that you held on to it for a little bit longer? I'm not saying to overextend yourself, obviously, but depending on your entry, depending on your risk, you may feel confident now that you've seen this article. And I appreciate the feedback there, Jane. And Joel, I saw you posting that you're taking off, so I guess I won't be getting any sniper Skype calls from you later on. So you guys take care. But again, if you guys would like to talk further about a particular site, let me know. I'll be happy to go into a little bit further. So this is just another tool. And again, I'm not promoting any site over another, other than obviously Day Trading Radio. I'm going to promote the heck out of that one because we're all members of that site. We're happy to be members. And if you happen to share out this video to some that are not members and they're watching this on YouTube in 100 years from now, they're going to want to be interested in checking out Day Trading Radio because Johnny will still be around 100 years from now, right, Johnny? That's when the robots take over. Okay. I'm going to put on a little fan in the background, guys, and if it starts to become too noisy, please let me know. I don't want to make the broadcast into a bunch of clicks, as you might even be hearing in my headset. All right, so let me take a look at the list I made of some other sites that we'd like to highlight. Okay, here's one that I know you guys have been hearing as a member of Day Trading Radio. And if you're a newer member, you're probably wondering where that sound is coming from. So I'm going to paste it in over here. And also paste it into the room for you guys. Now this is a website that's called ZeroHedge. Now the top of this is just 100% advertisement, so I'm just going to move this down to right around where the menus shows up. Now this has several parts to it. The main part is the news that you can get from these articles. For example, here's the front page article that was posted at about 6:20 p.m. my time, which is Eastern Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time, I guess, at this point. And you're going to see that there's a highlight of the single article here, but just keep in mind, this is not the entire article. This is maybe the first paragraph of the article. And you'll notice that it says who posted the article. So we've got Tyler's name here, the date and time. And what you'll find is, even though it's not in an alternating color, is the heading is linkable. So in this case, we're looking at this dollar amount of 16 trillion Obama, is the way they wrote that. So if you wanted to read the article, you can click onto the heading here. Now, without getting into the articles themselves, if we scroll down, you'll see how the second article is right below it. And again, you can click on the heading for this article. And if we go further down, there's the next section. And the heading again is clickable. So that's how all these articles are set up. Don't feel like you've read it all when you've read just this one little part. The more that you can get information on, then the better your trading will be. Some of them have some really clever charts that come up. So let's look at this one here, the ultimate visualization of Australia's housing bubble. So we click into that article and give it a second for the internet bytes to come. And because of all the lovely advertising on the site, the news article remains simply in this middle section. So I'm going to just cut out the riffraff and hold to the article itself. And here you can see a chart that someone's put together. So some information here about housing costs in Australia. and it mentions that the median monthly mortgage repayment rose from $1,300 to $1,800 from 2006 to 2011, and the median weekly rent rose from $191 to $285. So the payments for renters have gone up more percentage-wise than they have for mortgage holders. And then here's a reference to the tightening mortgage belt by capital city. So you've got the little flags listed, and these little flags, there's a legend here that says it's an increase in repayments versus the increase in house prices. And there's a chart for, again, the mortgage payments versus the rent payments. So I'm not going to get into analysis of what all this means, but the point is there's plenty of information that is included on these web pages, and you might find it useful. Now, this website, I'll have to tell you, is definitely a buyer beware type of a website, because the guys that are posting to this are getting their news from all kinds of places. Some places are not vetted like a regular newspaper might do. That could be good or bad, because sometimes you'll get the information a lot earlier than it would at another news source, because the other news source is waiting to confirm, and by the time they confirm, you're losing that information, or your advantage to having that information. In other cases, some of the articles are posted and they're a little slanted, so you got to be cautious of that too. And that's going to be the case, frankly, with any news source that you use. But I do find that the information here is very cleverly presented. I like the charts. I also like the connections these guys make to things that took place in the past. So, for example, here's an article about this 16 trillion, and you'll see what they're doing is pointing out something from November 16th, 2011, and they've got a link which will take you back to an article from November 16th, 2011, when ZeroHedge marked the fact that the U.S. had passed 15 trillion in debt for the first time since World War II. And as they point out, we celebrated it by cheering 15 trillion Obama. And today, August 28, is when we can unofficially celebrate again, because 286 days after the last major milestone was surpassed with disturbing ease, total U.S. debt following today's $35 billion auction of two-year bonds is, well, in a word, 16 trillion Obama. So, again, the news is there, but it's presented with a little bit of a slant, obviously, and you can get into arguments as to whose fault it is, and that's really not the point of this show. But here's some interesting information. They do back it up with a lot of facts that you can then check out yourself. And here's an interesting forecast as to when we'll be crossing the next trillion mark, 17, 18, 19, and 20, over the next several years. So, ZeroHedge.com, another tool that can be of use. Now, another part of this website I'm going to look at is here on the right-hand side. Now, I'm in the article itself. I'm going to hit back and go to the home page, and you'll see that this is also over here. And it happens to be this section here. There's several sections. The first one up here is a advertisement link, audio commentary from Rand Squawk. We'll take a look at that in a second. Below that is Rand Squawk News. Now, this is a running tally of news as it happens being posted to the site. And it also has a link to the Fly on the Wall, which is a paid service in one sense, but through here they have a way of being able to see some of this news. Let me just see how they did that. Yeah, I clicked on that and it changed what was being presented in this box. So I went from having the Rand Squawk News to having the Fly on the Wall News. Let me go back to the Rand Squawk News, and they're pretty close together, aren't they? Okay, so that's some information there that you can get a hold of during the day. And then you've got the comments, which, by the way, when it comes to these news articles, watch how much time you spend on the comments. I mean, here's the one article we just were looking at earlier about the 16 billion, and you'll see that there's 237 comments. Now, do you want to trade, or do you want to spend your day reading everyone's opinion about whatever that news item is? Because you'll spend a lot of time doing that. So just keep that in mind as a caution. If you like to read comments, read comments. I'm not going to stop you. All right, so let's take a look at the other section here on the forum, on the ZeroHedge website, which is the live audio market commentary. Now this is a really neat tool. You click on this button here. Now the page is changing, so I'll do my best to re-expand this. And this will take you to a page where, again, you have the latest news that's coming here. And you get, for example, the news when the announcements come out about the housing, about the unemployment, about the manufacturing index, about the consumer index. These all come out on here. You'll also notice that there's international news. So this is particularly useful when you're in a trade that can be affected by international news, which for the most part isn't at most of the trading that we do. So, for example, here you have the TFX, which was closed on Monday, I believe, and here it's closed on Tuesday. TFX audio, that would stand for, oh, you know what, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the squawk. It might be. And no one is contradicting me, so I'm going to just run with that. But you also have other information in here, like the Australia US dollar. Gives you a sense about the trades that are going on with that and some of the levels that are being reached. Down below here you have info about the US China currency. So plenty of information here. 30-year mortgage rate falls to 3.39 from 3.50 according to Xylo, so that's interesting news. Now, besides having the news here, you have, by the way, a compact view that you can click on. What this will do is open this up in its own separate window that you can then put on a different monitor or resize in a different way if you'd like, and be able to look at it later. So that's the headlines. Now, besides that, you've got the calendar that you can click on. And again, because this is an international website, you're getting an international calendar of news that's being posted in other countries. This second column gives you the country in question. Research videos. Now, the part I was going to mention in particular is over here on the right, where it says squawk stopped. And this is an audio feed. If you click on that, and let me expand this so you guys can see it, and you'll get a microphone link here. The audio right now is stopped, and they give you a test option here so you can make sure it's working. And I'm not getting, oh, there we go. So there's a little bit of a test. We can click stop on that. So once you're confirmed that your sound is working properly, then you can click the Forex option.
Hello, and welcome to Talking Forex in association with our friends at ZeroHedge. The audio feed you are listening to is 5 minutes delayed, but if you would like to hear the service in real time, then please visit www.talking-forex.com. Enjoy your trading day. Thank you.
Okay, so again, I'm not getting a plug for having put that out on the air, but it's a valuable source, and I figured I'd throw that out there for you guys to know this information. And we're getting some comments in the room about the economic calendar, and as it's mentioned there by Michael Freeman, that the calendar that's presented is useful to know when not to trade the futures. So that's a good comment to keep in mind. If you're trading the futures, you really need to be aware of things that are taking place that'll have an effect on the market outside of price levels and outside of the normal psychology of the market. So, for example, let's say you're trading crude oil. When London closes at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, you should be aware that that's going to happen, because if you're in a position when the liquidity gets sucked out of the market, it's going to have an effect on your trade, won't it? So the calendar here is something that's good to keep in mind. And there's other sources for calendars. I'm not saying this is the only one for you guys to use, but it's definitely an international one that's helpful. Now, since we're talking about international information websites, let me we'll go on to another website that might be of interest. And if you just bear with me for a second, I'll make sure I'm bringing up the right one. And I'm getting some advertisement here, so I don't want to bore you with the advertisements. Just give me a second here. Okay. I'm going to paste this in the room and bring it up on the screen for you guys to take a look at it. All right, this is on the money.cnn.com website. And this is another link that I like to have on my phone, so I have it with me. And that's because this is a graphical view of the markets across the planet. I like it for that reason. I'm going to zoom in. We don't really need to be advertising for all these other companies, do we? So let's just zoom into the section of interest here, which is in the lower left side of the web page. Now, I have this bookmarked to go directly to Asia, because for the most part I usually know what's going on in America when I just have my broker account open. But on this website here for CNN Money, I like it because it splits apart the three major market time zones for easy understanding. And when you're trading something that has an effect internationally, you need to know what's going on when the other markets are open or closed. You need to know when they're having their holidays. You should really know when they're having their announcements. As Michael just mentioned, when he's trading, he says, I'm not in a trade when there's news coming out. And that's a wise course. Some people feel otherwise, and again, we're not giving trading advice. We're just presenting the options to you guys. So when it comes to trading, it's a good idea to make sure you know what's going on with the rest of the world. So, for example, and Stock Bandit, yes, I did see that on the list. I didn't see someone sign that as to whether they said they would be calling in about that. But if you're saying that you'd like to talk about that, we can certainly do that. Just give me a few moments. Let me know in the chat room if that's what you'd like to do. But in the meantime, we'll go back to talking about this page here for the markets. So, like I said, the highlight in white right now is the Asian market, and that shows itself in my time zone. So the Asian market is open, as it says here, from 8 p.m. until 3 a.m. Eastern Time. Okay? So right now, China is closed. The Hang Seng has been open for 31 minutes and it's up 0.07%. And the Nikkei has been open well, in this case it says they're going to be closing in 5 hours and 1 minute, and they're up 0.28%. When you scroll down on this page, you can see the individual indexes and their various changes percentage-wise, amount-wise, and when they were last updated. This isn't a live feed of the data, and again, it's just one source to get this information, but sometimes this is important. There's been plenty of times I've been in a silver trade or a gold trade, and I've wanted to know what was happening overseas with these markets. If you look in the center section, there's Europe. I'm going to click on that, and you'll notice that it should change to white as the page reloads and make the other sides grayed out. So here's the European market. If you've ever wondered when they're open, 3 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. So that's why we mentioned 11:30 earlier, that the London market closes. And the oil futures, for example, it dries up when it comes to the market closing at 11:30. So you want to be aware of that. What I also like is in a glance, if you notice these red and green circles, is that they are drawing the size of that circle in comparison to one another in a way to graphically show you without even reading the numbers. But graphically it's showing you that, for example, the CAC 40, the France market, is ended up down more than the DAX or the German market did for this particular day, for yesterday, trading day. Market obviously closed now. But that's why if you wake up at 2:45 and you want to start trading the ES, you can come in here at 3 a.m. and see what's going on in Europe and trade accordingly. And many people do that. So you might find that useful. And then, of course, you've got the North and South American markets, not to leave out our other continent brethren, as it were, in the Eastern Hemisphere here. You have the American market. It shows you the S&P, down 0.08 today, the Mexican Bolsa, and the Brazilian Bovespa, if I'm saying that right. And down below, again, you've got graphically showing you, here's Brazil, up 294 points today. Sounds like a lot, right? Well, it's only 0.5%, because their market level is at 58,000 versus the Dow at 13,000. So you can't just look at the points. But you also get the Canadian market is shown here, the TSX, and you've got the Chile market and the Mexican market here. So some information that's useful. I like the Brazilian market being here because we've had some trades in the past from the HPS related to some of the Brazilian grocery stores, like Brazilian Foods, for example. So if you're trying to track the Brazilian market, you want to see how it's doing, you can use this as a resource. And again, like I said earlier, I like it that this is a simple chart. It comes up on the phone pretty nicely. Even though you might have a smaller phone, you can turn it sideways and zoom into that graph and instantly know what's going on with the market. I also like at the top here is they put a little paragraph commentary on what was going on with the markets during those times. Okay? And we had a comment in the room, and I do want to make that point about the Nikkei in Japan. And Michael mentions it's similar to the S&P that we have here, the S&P of Japan, as it were. Okay, so that's another piece of information. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little break. I'm going to put on some music. And I don't care if I've got to edit, I will edit away. But I'm going to get the next couple of websites lined up. And if you guys want to shoot me a message in the room that you'd like to call in, or you just want to comment on a particular website, you'd want me to bring it up, you want to tell us something about it. You don't have to be on the air for an hour. Just come on for 5 minutes and make a pitch for why you find this website to be useful, we'd like to hear about it. Okay? And I'll be back in just a moment. To another site that you guys have commented about, and I'm going to look at the survey that we posted earlier. And this is an interesting website that I just learned about today, and yet apparently it's been around since 2009. And as soon as I learn how to copy my links, I will be able to post it here for you guys. And we're not getting it. Now, that's the joy of trying to copy a cell in Google Docs. Do it the long way. Alright, so here's the tool. We hear you, but there was music. Alright, but right now there shouldn't be any music. I don't know how much of a delay is going on here with the audio, but my video on my wireless connection, it seems like it's about 20 seconds behind what I'm actually saying, so I hope you guys are getting this a lot quicker than I see it coming up on my screen. In fact, what I'll do is I'll bring up the broadcast on another page here and see if it comes up any more live than what I'm seeing now. Alright, so what I wanted to point out to you guys was this link here, which again I will put in the room for those of you who are not able to squint enough to see the page. But there's the link there. And this is a tool that was written by our very own Paul Matthews, RPM. We love the guy. He's got so much free time on his hands that in 2009 he started work on this JavaScript tool and is still looking for some tweaks to do to it, as most programmers are. Never happy with the final product, right, Paul? But this is the tool. Now, on the face of it, this looks like some simple website where you're going to put in a stock symbol and all you're going to get back is a simple little Yahoo Finance kind of feedback on the symbol. Well, watch my tabs here. I'm using Google Chrome. I'm going to move this up a little. Let's close out these other tabs. So I've just got the one tab open. Now watch when I hit search. See how fast you notice these other tabs pop up. Booyah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tabs. It brought me to the last tab, which is Google Finance. And you'll see that the spinning weight symbols are gone already. So let's walk through this and see what we got. On our first tab, we've got the finviz.com website and the charting that's there. Excellent, excellent tool. And here alone is the FinViz website, a tool that you should bookmark as well for further reference. And I want to come back to this site because there's something I'm going to show you in a little bit. Let's go to that next tab. Here's a page called winchart.com. Now this is an interesting chart. We're looking at a 1-minute Duncan chart, and according to this, it looks like it's automatically throwing in some price levels. Now, not having used this before, maybe RPM, you can comment on what the price levels are that are getting thrown in here automatically. But getting back to this tool, so this really is not the point to say what these websites do, but just the fact that you can get multiple websites linked into this tool and have them launch. And over time we can build this into a library of favorites, and you'll make this tool improve on it and be something good for everyone.
Yeah, and you know what? It was just when I used to do a lot of research and everything, looking up site. I had all my favorite sites. Those were some of the favorites. Obviously, you know, the FinViz, and I forget where I found WinChart from. But there's Google Finance, of course. You know, it's probably a good idea to look at that. There was a couple of news sites that I had in there. And the cool thing is it opens them all up for you instantaneously. Mm-hmm. And that's what you were demonstrating earlier. Right. And that took about 3 weeks of code to get it to do that, because you have to get around all the pop-up blockers and stuff like that and everything. But the concept that I'll go ahead and repeat this. I said this earlier, but they didn't have the audio on. the concept is to have it very simple so you can save. You can go to the site and it'll be a list of, say, 20 or 30 different sites that have that, ticker query component to them. And you go to this page, not this page here, but, the original page where you entered a ticker, and you select which sites you like. And once you save it, then only those will open the next time you run it. And that's the idea is to save time by using all the research sites that you like to use. If you're looking at one particular stock, you plug it in there one time, it opens them all up. You can glance at everything really fast.
Right.
And
And we have a question in about whether this only works on Chrome, and I assume that's not the case.
Chrome opens in new tabs like Design, and Firefox opens in new tabs like Design. In Internet Explorer 9, it wants to open up new windows, which is kind of weird. But nobody uses IE anymore. Anyways, it's got 33% market share out of the browsers. So
yeah.
Well,
some people still have all their tools built into IE that they like, they're comfortable with. I don't want to downplay what other people like to use, but
Chrome
that's what I got
change
you
your
for.
life.
Yes,
Chrome will change your life.
I held off on Chrome for a long time. I was a big Microsoft nut job, and I held off. I started with the Gmail account, and then I says, all right, let me try this Google Chrome thing. And I can't tell you, how fast it took me to start importing my favorites, my bookmarks, and just completely stop using Hotmail, and everything else just went by the wayside, because Chrome is not just about the browser, but it's about the shared experience that you get from not only having it on your one machine, but any machine you log into. All your bookmarks are there. I mean,
all your passwords, everything that you want to store on your Google account.
Yeah.
It goes across all the platforms. I love that. I can roll across the side of the office and go on the one machine, drop a bookmark on the toolbar, go over to the other machine on the other side of the office, open up Chrome, and within 5 seconds, there's a bookmark already on there.
Yeah, it's a valuable tool. But again, everyone's got their their things they like to use, and Internet Explorer. I don't know why it's taken them so long to catch up, but like you said, they're just losing market share left, right, and center.
Yeah.
So just to highlight another feature of this tool, which is good, is the fact that when you change your symbol, so let's say we were to look up the jokers at Microsoft, what you'll see happen is that I didn't get another 6 tabs open.
Nope, it changes each into the ones, and that took a while to fix that.
Yeah. I could tell. That's little nuances that I noticed being a programmer myself, that you have to, it's not automatic. So that's definitely a great little tool. And
I'm glad it still works. I haven't used it in a while.
Yeah, what made you think to bring it up?
Because it's just one of those things that, whenever I do research and stuff, the first thing that I thought about is that you ask for people to give their favorite websites. Well, a lot of these on there might be on the list. Obviously FinViz, Google Finance, you could make Yahoo Finance as one of them, all the different ones. And I knew that would show people, 6 of them right there, and then, I thought that, all the people who have given feedback for your show tonight, and they've given you all these different sites, any of them that have a query for the ticker, we could actually incorporate some of those new sites that people have, exposed to us. We could incorporate those in this tool. So you could pick which ones, and pick some of those favorites, So this is kind of like the container in the tool that will allow us to control all those different sites that people bring to us,
Right. Good point.
Hopefully. So.
Yeah. So guys, that's a thought for you. We mentioned earlier about the Day Trader Radio Forum, and we've got a link in here near my show, or there's actually an existing link for favorite websites. So I apologize to those that have already used this. I didn't mean to start a whole nother thread, but here's a place where you can go ahead and throw in some of your favorite websites. You'll see some here already from Joel and some of the other members, and you can add to the list, and then over time, Paul can use some of these sites to update his tool. And maybe eventually throw a little advertising on here and generate some RPM revenue.
Yeah, I just what I'll probably do, and that is an idea, but that's a mighty fine idea.
Why not, right?
Yeah, what I was thinking about doing is just have a little link somewhere on the Day Trading Radio's member site,
Right.
and you click that, and it pops up like a tiny
Oh,
little
that'd be
box,
nice. That would be
and
nice.
you plug it in one time, then it opens up another browser window with the 6 tabs in it, and that way it wouldn't take you away from Day Trading Radio's site,
Right.
and
Right.
but yeah, I'm looking for feedback and stuff, any ideas on it and all. It seems very simple, but when I went to go make it,
Oh, yeah.
it was. Think about it. When was the last time you seen a tool that did that with just straight up browser?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a unique tool, and I know they've made things that have a lot more bells and whistles, but sometimes you need the simplicity of it because, like you said, you could just take this and stick it on a page, and not take up a lot of real estate.
Yep. Yep. And the one thing that people would complain about is that maybe they don't like those particular sites, or they might be using one in particular they really like. So the next level with this thing is allow people to pick from I don't know, we could come up with probably 50 or 75 different ones, and you could have little check boxes, and you pick which ones you want,
Right.
and then save it. And then it's locked in there. And then you just bookmark it. And then when it's time for you to look up a stock really quick that you're thinking about getting into, you want to make sure that there's no news out on it or anything crazy, or that, there's no bearish, channels drawn on FinViz or anything like that. You hit it one time and bam, it's done. So.
All right. Well, thanks for calling in, Paul. I want to encourage others to call in as well. I don't want you to feel like you have to stay on the whole time, and don't want others to feel like they would be obligated to stay on a long time. So
no, we're good. We got a thunderstorm coming up anyways. I'm probably going to wind up getting off here anyways. But I want to thank you too for doing the shows for us. Day Trading Radio really appreciates this. I know the members really appreciate it, and really do. You do a very professional job, and using your own time and putting your own efforts in, and it's definitely showing. So we really appreciate it.
all right, my pleasure, and hopefully I'll work out these bugs so I can make sure the audio's playing when I say.
You'll get it, man. It's no big deal.
All right.
Hey, you don't have to strip that song out of the YouTube version.
Good point. Good point. Thanks a lot, buddy.
All right, man. See you.
All right. Thanks, Paul, for calling in on this website tool. So if you're just tuning into us here, I see some other members streaking into the site, and you're listening to Jeff Foxworthy. No, you're listening to daytradingradio.com, and this is Briguy's Tools of the Trade. And tonight's episode, we're taking a look at some website tools that are useful to members and to other traders out there. All right. So at this point, I'm going to bring up another tool that was mentioned in our survey that we had posted in the room earlier. And if you're on the website, you can just scroll down to the updates section, the announcements, and you'll see a couple of links there, and one in particular to a survey where I have asked you guys for some feedback on some tools that you like. So we're going to take a look at a tool here that was brought up by a few members, and even though there's no name on the survey, I'm going to take a stab in the dark, since it was also brought up in the chat room, that this page, this web tool, is something that is useful to several of our users, and in particular I believe Stock Bandit had brought this up. So this is a website called Seeking Alpha. Now their little byline that they have under their name here is read, decide, invest. So basically the site, and I'll have to yield to you guys to give me your opinions about it. I've got mixed opinions, I'm going to tell you. I have mixed opinions about this website. And the reason is because it's basically an open forum for anyone who wants to publish articles about any topic. Now, granted, you're going to want to post, you're going to need to disclose, just as a proper reporter and ethically speaking, you're going to need to disclose which stocks you might already own or that you don't own when you're writing articles about it. But that aside, I've read a couple of articles in here that I feel is completely just bunk. And in particular, I'm not going to get into the stock. We could talk about it another time, but stocks that I happen to know about the company in my own research, and I'm reading an article where the guy's making accusations that are really unfounded. They're accusations that are based upon innuendos, based upon inferences, if I'm saying that right, inferences, and not based on any real research. So based on all these inferences that this guy was making in his article, he starts drawing these conclusions. And what really annoyed me was that because I was following that particular stock, I'm getting alerts about this article on my emails. And secondly, I'm seeing links to this article showing up on Google Finance, which means anyone else looking at the stock is seeing this article. And based upon the little heading that gets posted on Google Finance, if you don't read the article, people can just make an assumption that it's an accurate article, and it drives me a little crazy. All right. That being said, this is a tool that can be used, and as with most things, it's a buyer beware kind of a situation, isn't it? So let's just go into here and say, for example, we want to look up something like Apple, because no one is looking at Apple right now, right? And we want to see some of the articles. So here you got your typical information that you're getting in all of these sites for the most part, and that is your basic chart. And this is looks like a week's worth of data. Each one of these columns is a day. So, for example, you see the run-up from Monday morning that we had in Apple, and of course you guys know why we had that run-up on Apple, and that's because of the news over the weekend that the court case was settled with Apple being awarded over $1 billion in damages from Samsung. But notice what it did after. It spiked first thing in the morning, and then there it ends up leveling out and trickling back down, coming up to a point and leveling out. So the news happened and popped it and leveled it out. So just be careful when you're trying to trade around the news. If you weren't in on Friday, you basically weren't getting a benefit unless somehow you were trading this pre-market. But here you have the articles underneath, market currents, as it says, and it's backwards in time. So you've got 6:30 p.m., 1:50 p.m., 11:30 a.m., and then you get to Monday, 7:40 p.m., and the news continues backwards, and you've got a little, well, this is a bad place for the More button, because this is the Apple in Focus, which is the section below. If you want to read more of these articles, you actually have to come back up here to Apple Market Currents and then click More. And here you get the full description of these articles. And of course, it seems like it goes beyond the Monday threshold that was on that first page. And here we get into Sunday news. So at the very least, it's a useful grouping of news items that you can reference for all these. I can tell here too, you have all the little blue sections which are links. Now, whenever I see links, I like to know what they're for. And so if you guys can see, and I can tell you can't, so I'm going to change this briefly so you guys can see something about links. And that is, look at the bottom of my browser. I'm going to zoom this in a little bit. And when I hover on a link, you're going to notice that the browser window is displaying, for a moment anyway, the name of the link. Now, I'm looking on the broadcast, and I'm not seeing it come up on the broadcast, so that's a little interesting to me. But if you guys have Chrome, I don't know if maybe it's a frame rate that it's not showing up, but the point I'm trying to make is that before you click on a link, you should have a sense of where it's going. So when it comes to a news aggregator like Seeking Alpha, I like to see where these links are going, and according to what I can tell on my browser, and maybe you guys can confirm that on your end, is that these links go to other Seeking Alpha web pages, other articles within the site. So that's useful information to me when I'm trying to do research, because if a research article is tracking itself back to its own research article, then that's not really helpful. Okay, and of course the one article I picked out of all of them happened to be one that took me away to Barron's, and that was the first article here. But most of these seem to be tracking themselves back to Seeking Alpha web pages. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the tool. Now, I didn't see any comments come out in the room, and if anybody in particular would like to bring out something about Seeking Alpha, please PM me and let me know what it is that you like about it. Now, let's take a stock, for example, in the HPS setup we were looking at earlier. We mentioned Duncan. Why don't we take something like IACI, which is the Interactive Corporation. And this one doesn't have as many articles as Apple. But what you can do is, if you create an account on here, and I have an account with Seeking Alpha, you'll see that I'm logged in over here. What you can do is you can create alerts for particular stocks. So for example, let's take Interactive Corporation, and right below the chart there's a little reference here, and it says 267 people get IACI articles and market currents by email alert. So you can click this link. I get a little pop-up confirmation that I'm subscribed to the email alerts, and they're being sent to my email address that I've registered here with Seeking Alpha, and that's it. That's all I have to do. So now whenever there's an article, I'm going to get an email about it. So let me show you, for example. I just have to log in to my email, and I'm going to do that on another screen. But I will take a Seeking Alpha article and show you what it looks like. Alright, so let me just shrink this down to the pertinent info. But there's your email. So for example, I signed up for alerts regarding Zynga, and whenever there is an alert that comes out, you'll see how fast I get it. This particular alert is labeled at 7:04 p.m. and my email is telling me that I got it at 7:05 p.m. So now I don't know why that just disappeared like that on me, but alright, we'll just, it didn't like having that alert on the page, I guess. Okay, so those are some ideas. Now I'm getting a couple other comments here, and it's saying that if you're a good writer, then you get paid for articles you write on Seeking Alpha, and then a paid per view. Alright, so that's good information to know if you are a writer, and there's plenty of sites out there that support writers in this fashion. I'm going to show you a particular page of why I'm not particularly fond of this Seeking Alpha format, but again, that's just my personal experience and not speaking for everyone. Let's go to this guy right here, Kevin Stevens. This is my nemesis here for Zynga, and that's because this guy's written 4 articles on Zynga. His first one dates back to April 20th, and it was called Zynga and the Lack of Federal Oversight. Now, that article headline showed up because many of these websites out there are just aggregators of news. And I found it on Yahoo Finance and Google Finance and a couple other places referencing this article. And if you don't read the article and you don't know anything about Zynga, then you're going to form an opinion as to what it says right there, a lack of federal oversight. Now, just think about it in all logic. Does private companies, do they need to have federal oversight over their daily operations? And I'm not talking about a public company and the fact that they need to disclose information. But in this case, we're talking about making a comparison of Zynga to a gaming commission situation where they need to be governed by the gaming commission because they happen to make games. And if you want to go to this article, and I'll throw the article in the room for you guys, you scroll down to the end there and you'll see it's probably listed under my name, Mr. Enacon, but I posted a couple comments of my own to this article because I was just flabbergasted as to how he's making the comparison to say that the gaming commission needs to get involved. And I don't see anybody saying the same about Bungie or EA or Activision or Sony or Nintendo. You know, these are all companies that make games, that sell add-ons to those games and encourage you to buy things in order to get further in the game, and they turn it into a profitable situation. But to say that that's a reason why it should have some kind of federal oversight, that's just, I don't know. Now, I'm getting off topic, and I apologize. But just letting you guys know that it is another tool. I don't want to take away from that aspect of it. It is another tool. I like the alert aspect of it, the fact that you can set up alerts, and there is plenty of news in here that references out to non-Seeking Alpha writers. And I guess, as with anything over time, you're going to learn to love and hate certain writers. So I just happen to have a little disagreement with Mr. Stevens on some of his viewpoints there. But don't let that get in the way of you deciding whether you want to make use of this this site. There's plenty of useful things in there. And it's another useful tool as well for stocks. As you see here, you've got dividends and income, some information about popular ETFs. Here's another page for ETFs. So if you're looking for different ETFs, here's a way of looking them up: small caps, large caps, etc., etc. Okay? So those are some of the tools that are out there, and we're coming up on that 10 o'clock hour, and I do want to just show you guys maybe just one more site. I don't want to make this episode about every single website that's out there. We certainly want to come back to this, and we'll go into some of these other sites that were sent in. I'm going to cover perhaps another site that was mentioned on one of the comments, and I'm going to post it in the room as soon as I can copy and paste. Okay, now this site was mentioned to me by one of the members. It's called StockCharts.com. And I actually had this on my list as well for perhaps different reasons than what some of the members. But the beautiful thing about this website is its depth. There is a lot of different things going on with this particular website. So, for example, if we just simply look at the charting aspect of it, here's the link on the first tab, free charts. So you can create charts right from this tool. Here's something called a sharp chart that you can just point into this box. Let's put in Dunkin' Donuts, hit go, and there's your chart. Okay, advertisement aside, just to kind of limit our advertising here. Here's a chart already with the trend lines put in there, already with the MACD thrown in. You've got RSI at the top. You got volume bars. This is I believe a daily view, and right below the chart you have a list of options for changing that chart from a daily. Let's see, you got daily and weekly. You've got different volume overlays. Here's a section for the monthly average overlays, and you can pick several choices. You've got the Bollinger Bands, for example, Ichimoku clouds, Keltner channels, pivot points, VWAP, several things. Here's your indicators. You can add to this list and have different indicators that you want to show, like let's see, you've got a average true range, Bollinger Band width. Here's a correlation, force index. You can scroll down here and get into your stochastics, fast and slow and full. Here's a simple 1433. We say update, and there's our chart updated with not only the MACD below the graph, but also now the full stochastics with the 1433 measurement on the chart. And there's Dunkin' Donuts from our HPS index that's just flying high. So that's just one feature of this website that's useful. Another feature that I like is the chart school. If you're trying to learn about trading and you're looking to understand the terminology and how to read a chart, how to understand candles, then this is one resource that you can make use of. Believe me, there are plenty of other tools out there, and I'm not trying to elevate this above others. On another show, we might even talk about some of the other sources that are out there. But this one is one that you might find useful. They have it labeled out in the table of contents, and each one of these links that you go into is going to bring you into a whole nother world of information. So, for example, charts and chart analysis methods. You go into there, and you get your basics. What are charts? Support and resistance. Trend lines. In this next section, candlesticks. An introduction to candlesticks. Well, let's go into the introduction to candlesticks. Here's a little history. You can familiarize yourself with that. And then here's your basic candlestick formation. Upper shadow, lower shadow. What does a white real body versus a colored in real body mean? Here's a candlestick chart. What does this mean? These are the cues. Here's a bar chart below, a candle chart above. Maybe you would rather learn on a bar chart versus a candlestick chart. There are so many things in regards to candlesticks that it behooves you as a trader, if you want to be a serious trader, whether you do it part-time or full-time, educate yourself. Become knowledgeable on reading charts and become knowledgeable on the different chart patterns. Here's a lesson for you just in this one simple point. The doji. When you've got a chart and it forms a doji, and notice what a doji is. It's a narrow body with just about an even shadow on either side. Now you'll see another form of the doji listed below. Sometimes these are called a gravestone and a headstone formation. And I think if I read below that, it probably will tell me that. But what does that mean when you see a doji? Well, think about it. You've got people, when this candle started, let's say it's a 1 minute candle. When this 1 minute started, you had a whole bunch of people that pushed the price down, down, down. But then within that minute, the price came back up, 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 and went up to a high point, and then came back down, 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 and finished out the minute at the same price level that it went in. Now, sometimes these patterns, it's really something to study on a daily chart. So let's look at it from a daily perspective. What just happened when you see the doji? Basically, it means that the bulls and the bears had even pressure on that stock and were not able to push it completely in either direction. So there's your psychology in the market, and realizing that for that particular day, it was a battle and no one really got out of there as a winner. Spinning tops, I see that mentioned in the room, and here's an example of one. It's similar to a doji, but the difference being that the body has a little bit of weight to it, that the price of where it started and ended has a little distance. The shadows are still there, so you still had that push up and the push down and the push back to the middle. And whether it started low, went all the way up and came back down, it might have zigzagged up and down all day long, and many times it does do that. But the point is, at the end of the day, it pushed itself back to the same price level. And those are good signals when you group them with other candles to be able to recognize a pattern. And once you understand these individual candles and what they mean, you can start to understand the patterns of candles and what they mean. And this website is a really valuable reference for you to understand what the patterns mean, and later on to go back to when you're seeing a pattern and you're trying to remember whether it's bullish or bearish. You can go back to this website and go back to these pages, find the pattern, and be able to explain it and be able to make a decision in your trading. And that reminds me of a couple other websites to bring up on another show. All right, so I'm taking a look in the room here at a couple other comments here. Okay, I think that's some more comments about the Seeking Alpha site. And again, I didn't mean to come so hard on it. I guess I had a strong opinion about that one writer. But it is a very useful site. It is a very useful site. So here's the, again, StockCharts.com. Lots of information in here. Obviously, they're making money on the advertisements, so that's why they can gather all this information and present it to you for free. And you can make use of it as much as you'd like. Here's some of the patterns that are being talked about. Andrew's pitchfork, Fibonacci retracements. You can bring that up and see what does Fibonacci even mean, if you've been wondering. You might have heard us talk about that on the show. Some of the traders point out some of the price levels in a Fibonacci reference. So, not the point of the show to get into a complete reference for all this, but you guys can make use of it. All right, so that's the end of the show. We reached the 10 o'clock hour, and I want to apologize to you guys for the audio trouble earlier. Just still working out the kinks here, and big oversight on my part, and I guess nobody was able to ring a bell and get me to come back into the room after I stepped away. So we will get that ironed out for the next time. I will wrap up the show here. We're going to have another show in the future. We'd like to take a look at some other tools that are out there. I've got some folks that have given me some feedback that they use some tools, and I don't want anyone to feel like they have to come on and talk for 2 hours straight. So if you've got a tool that you like, and we can maybe do a show where we highlight a tool, for example, let's say interactive brokers, and have maybe 3 or 4 members come on and just bring out a certain aspect of the tool that they like and that they make use of. Maybe there's something that you enjoy about the software and that you take for granted because you discovered it, maybe you read it somewhere, and you found it to be very useful. But you know what? Sometimes those little things others don't know about. And so it would be a great way for us as members to share with one another and help one another in our trading to make use of these tools that we're spending so much money on for the commissions to have these tools. And so we might as well get the most out of it. Okay? So I'm getting a question here about the different stock forums. Maybe you could let me know what you mean about the stock forums. You mean Joe, are you talking about what you posted in the survey? I did see somebody posted a couple of forums that they found useful, and it might have been from Joey. Let me see here. Yeah, Joey, I did get your comments there, and I appreciate it. Since I didn't have a chance to look into them myself, I didn't want to just blindly go into it on the air and start showing it off and highlighting them without actually having a chance to look at them. So I'm not doing anything with the results of the survey. I definitely like them here, and I'm going to go back and look at these, and I'll be happy to share anything and everything with everyone, and it's up to you guys to decide if you like it. You threw a couple of forums there in the website, in the survey, that they might be useful. If you want me to get back to you individually and let you know what I think, I'll be happy to do that. Just send me a private message with your email, and or make sure you're registered in the group forum, and I can respond to you in a message in the group forum and let you know what I think. There's lots of resources in the internet, believe me, lots of resources, and it's not about trying to narrow down the billions of web pages out there to 6 or 7 that we find useful. That's really not the point of anybody. No one should make that their job to do. And I'm not trying to make this a Consumer Reports of trading tools, but we're definitely highlighting ones that we've come across, ones that we find useful. And I'm sorry I didn't get to all of them tonight, but we'll definitely get to some more at later shows and be able to talk about them in more detail. I appreciate the members who have submitted a few that we can take a look at other times. I try to cover a few of them, and we're just running out of time. But I appreciate Day Trading Radio for allowing the time, allowing the space on the channel, and I thank Paul again for helping out with getting the technical difficulties figured out. And I've obviously got a few more kinks to figure on addressing for the next show, so we'll try to get ourselves set up and organized for the next time. Okay? And as I was about to say about the tools, so you guys, if you have a tool that you'd like to share with us, and we can work out a way that either you're looking at my desktop or we can look at your desktop, then that would be a thing we can set up, and you can share out the tools that you're using and what you like about it. Okay? So that's it for now. Thank you for tuning in to daytradingradio.com. This is Briguy's Tools of the Trade, episode 2 in the can, and we're going to leave